Let's see. Landon, thank you for volunteering to open us with prayer.
Dear God, please be with us and help us have a good confirmation class.
Amen. Okay. Murphy's have to leave a little early. Let's see. Any questions on what from last week? Yes. All right.
The topic was what we learned about confirmation.
Correct. All right. Yes, we don't have your essay. If I don't have your essay, you owe me 2 for next week. All right? If I don't have your essay, you owe me 2 on next week. You look on your bottom of your sheets. Your assignment for next week is which biblical person, not Jesus, which biblical person would you like to hang out with and why? All right? You can pick them. Anybody in the Bible. You just got to explain why. Okay? All right. He's over here. He's over here. More essays. More essays. Okay.
How many more do we have to do after this?
After this next one,
Yeah.
probably the one.
Okay.
Probably give you a week off here before we start. Although I may just get on and have you keep writing. You know. See, I agree. Like I said, I'm not just being ornery here and mean to you. What I'm doing here is I'm trying to get you in the process of writing on this stuff. You're used to talking about math, you're used to talking about history and English and those kinds of things. Get you writing about biblical things. And I'll be perfectly honest, I'll read these, but you'll get them back. I'm not going to proofread them, I'm just going to read them and see where your head's at, what you're writing for me, and give them back to you, okay? When you get the other essay, your share, it's a story, but we'll deal with that upcoming, all right? So this is the process of getting you to write and that practice of writing on this, okay? It takes a little bit. We're at lesson 23. Last week's lesson was what? Before we get to the review. Who can tell me what last week's lesson was? Use your notes if you need to. Notes count. Yes?
The nativity story.
Nativity story, thank you.
Oh, yeah.
All right? Yes. All right. So that's where we're at in this storyline. Nativity story coming up and all that round. We didn't necessarily go into that in depth, but we covered the nativity story. All right? Here's the review for you. Here's a review for you.
God sent an angel to a girl named Mary. The angel told Mary that she would soon become pregnant and give birth to a son named Jesus. The angel told her it would be by God's power that she became pregnant. An angel visited Joseph as well, telling him not to be afraid. Soon after, they traveled to the town of Bethlehem. While they were there, Mary gave birth to her son, wrapped him in cloths, and laid him in the manger. There were shepherds living in the fields nearby. While they were watching their sheep, an angel appeared to them, announcing that a boy had been born in Bethlehem. This boy, said the angel, was the Messiah, the king that the Israelites had been waiting for. Later, Joseph, Mary, and Jesus moved back to Israel. When he was 12, they traveled to Jerusalem for a festival. When the festival ended, Joseph and Mary left for home, but Jesus stayed behind without them knowing. When they realized he was missing, they went back to Jerusalem and found Jesus sitting in the temple. Jesus told them, "Didn't you know I had to be in my Father's house?" Joseph and Mary didn't know what he meant. They did not yet fully understand the importance of who Jesus was and all he would do.
Right? One thing I passed on we didn't have time for last week, I want to share with you now. Open your Bibles up to Matthew chapter 1. Okay, Matthew chapter 1. Page number, somebody's got it.
1578.
1578. All right. So, this is a review time. Going to make you start thinking last year. I know, it's tough. Our last year for the first part of our class. First part of our class, right? We talked about the kings, right? All right. What did we learn about the kings in Israel? Yes.
That they were based good or bad, if they worshipped the Baals or not.
Right. Okay. Keep going. Like who? They were all compared to who? David, right? They're all compared to David, right? Were all of them good? Nope. The kings, where were bad? Remember anything else about them? Keep going, there's more. Were all in the south bad? Southern kingdom of Judah, were all of the southern kingdom of Judah bad? Maddox Murphy better not miss this one. Since you wrote a paper on this.
No, they were good.
Right, some were good, right? Like Maddox wrote a paper on Hezekiah that she let me read. Okay? And you're right. Some were good, like Hezekiah and Josiah. Some were bad. How about the kings of the northern kingdom of Israel? Were they good or bad? Kind of bad?
I don't know if they were all bad though.
Yeah.
I think they were mostly bad, but
They were like all bad. Okay? Right? So one of the things we saw through the Old Testament is on Israel, this Jews, is we saw, right? Is we saw how some of the kings were good and a lot of the kings were bad. We're constantly looking at those kings. Remember all that? Shake your heads yes. You remember?
oh yeah.
Right? Aiden, you with me? Remember? All right. Okay. Now look at Matthew chapter 1. All right? Chapter 1, verse 1. Right? The book of genealogy of Jesus Christ, the son of David. Right? We talked about that last week. You see down through here, if he's the son of David, what are we talking about here? It's covenant, right?
Yeah.
It's David covenant. He's going to be king. And we go down through here and you look at family tree, verse 8, where it says, and Jesse the father of David. David the father of Solomon. And if you look down through here from verse 6 through verse 11, what you find is all those guys in there listed in that section were all kings. Some of them good, some of them bad, right? So Matthew chapter 1 is talking about David, Jesus, son of David, so he's falling in this category, right? Jesus, he's telling you what Jesus is? Right, review from last week, right? Jesus is king, right? So now you got Jesus as king here. Now go over to chapter 2. Verse 13. Chapter 2, verse 1, right? Wise men came from the east, and who are they looking for? Who? The king, right? They first talk to who? Herod. They figure out what? Herod's not the king they're looking for. So they go to Bethlehem and find? Right. Who is? The king they were looking for, right? They leave. Verse 13. Now, when they departed, behold, an angel appeared to Joseph in a dream and said, rise, take the child by the goat, flee to Egypt, remain there until I tell you. For Herod. Herod's who?
Well, he's a king, but he's not the one.
Right. He's a king, but he's not really a king. Right? And so suddenly you have here, he's a king, but he's not the king we're talking about here. And so Herod comes in and says, Herod is about to search for the child to destroy him. All right? So what you have here in the first part of Matthew, that talked about it in the last session in here, you've got, last year we talked about the kings of Israel and how good and bad, some were good, some were bad. Then we talked about, in here the story talks about Jesus, how Jesus is the king. And then they introduced the idea of Herod, an earthly king, and sitting here saying, all right, you've got Jesus here, and you've got the earthly king. What the earthly king tried to do? Kill everybody, right? We're back comparing the same thing they did in the Old Testament. We're comparing bad kings and good kings. Got it? Matthew's doing the same thing as they did in the Old Testament. We saw comparing the bad kings and the good kings. Okay. All right. That was from last week. Let me get you to the next lesson. This is this week's. This is this week's. This is this week's. This is this week. There we go.
There was a man called John the Baptist, who was actually the cousin of Jesus, who lived in the wilderness telling people to turn away from their own ways and live in God's ways. John's clothes were made from camel's hair, and he ate locusts and wild honey. People from all over the area came to hear John speak. He would often baptize those who decided to follow God, dunking in their lake as a symbol of their choice. One day, Jesus came to John and asked him to be baptized. John said, "I'm the one who needs to be baptized by you." But Jesus convinced him to baptize him. When he did, he saw the sky split open, and the Spirit of God flew down like a dove and landed on Jesus. Then he heard a voice from heaven say, "This is my Son, whom I love." After Jesus' baptism, John the Baptist told all who came to hear him that Jesus was God's chosen one, the Messiah. Then Jesus went out into the wilderness and withheld from eating or drinking for 40 days. There, the devil showed up and put Jesus through a series of tests. Despite the devil's efforts to get Jesus to stop trusting God, Jesus refused the temptation, and the devil left. When Jesus returned from the wilderness, he selected 12 men to join him to minister throughout the area. These men, who were called disciples, became his closest group of followers. One day, when Jesus and his followers were attending a wedding feast, they ran out of wine. Jesus asked the servants to fill 6 large stone jars with water. When they did, the water miraculously turned into wine. This was just the first of many miracles that Jesus performed, showing his power and causing many to follow him. Jesus continued to travel across the area, meeting with everyone from powerful religious teachers to the ordinary folks, telling them how they could live God's way and be saved from their sins. And the miracles continued. Jesus healed people with all kinds of illnesses and even helped a paralyzed man walk again. He spoke about a new kingdom that was very different from anything people had heard before. Many people were amazed, but some of the religious leaders were angry and fearful as his following grew.
All right, hang on. Now this is a movie. It's going to take me a minute to get to where we're going. All right. The nice thing about getting into the New Testament with you guys, there's all kinds of videos we have of New Testament stuff. You saw some last week. I've got another one for this week. All right.
so much that he gave his only Son, so that everyone who believes in him may not die, but have eternal life.
All right, this is the same section that you just heard about. I'm going to let you watch it on this video.
All this happened in Bethany, on the east side of the Jordan River, where John was baptizing. The next day, John saw Jesus coming to him.
Is the Lamb of God who takes away the sin of the world. This is the one I was talking about when I said, a man is coming after me, but he is greater than I am, because he existed before I was born. I did not know who he would be. But I came baptizing with water in order to make him known to the people of Israel.
And John gave this testimony.
I saw the Spirit come down like a dove from heaven and stay on him. I still did not know that he was the one, but God, who sent me to baptize with water, had said to me, you will see the Spirit come down and stay on the Lamb. He is the one who baptizes with the Holy Spirit. I have seen it, and I tell you that he is the Son of God.
The next day, John was standing there again with two of his disciples when he saw Jesus walking by.
There is the Lamb of God.
The two disciples heard him say this and went with Jesus. Jesus turned, saw them following him.
What are you looking for?
Where do you live? Rabbi.
This word means teacher.
Come and see.
It was then about 4 o'clock in the afternoon, so they went with him and saw where he lived, and spent the rest of that day with him. One of them was Andrew, Simon Peter's brother. At once he found his brother Simon.
We have found the Messiah.
This word means Christ. Then he took Simon to Jesus. Jesus looked at him.
Your name is Simon, son of John, but you will be called Cephas.
This is the same as Peter and means a rock. The next day, Jesus decided to go to Galilee. He found Philip. And said to him, Philip was from Bethsaida, the town where Andrew and Peter lived. Philip found Nathanael.
We have found the one whom Moses wrote about in the book of the law, and whom the prophets also wrote about. He is Jesus, son of Joseph, from Nazareth.
Can anything good come from Nazareth?
Come and see.
When Jesus saw Nathanael coming to him, he said about him, "Here is a real Israelite."
There is nothing false in him.
How do you know me?
I saw you when you were under the fig tree before Philip called you.
You are the King of Israel.
Do you believe just because I told you I saw you when you were under the fig tree? You will see much greater things than this. I am telling you the truth. You will see heaven open, and God's angels going up and coming down on the Son of Man.
2 days later, there was a wedding in the town of Cana in Galilee. Jesus' mother was there. And Jesus and his disciples had also been invited to the wedding. When the wine had given out, Jesus' mother said to him, "They are out of wine."
Madam, what do you have to do with this? My time has not yet come.
Do whatever he tells you.
The Jews have rules about ritual washing, and for this purpose 6 stone water jars were there, each one large enough to hold between 20 and 30 gallons.
Fill these jars with water.
They filled them to the brim.
Now draw some water out and take it to the man in charge of the feast.
They took him the water, which now had turned into wine, and he tasted it. He did not know where this wine had come from, but of course the servants who had drawn out the water knew. So he called the bridegroom.
Everyone else serves the best wine first, And after the guests have drunk a lot, he served the ordinary wine. But you have kept the best wine until now.
Jesus performed this first miracle in Cana in Galilee. There he revealed his glory, and his disciples believed in him. After this, Jesus and his mother, brothers, and disciples went to Capernaum and stayed there a few days.
All right. Right at the end of our section for today. Let me show you a couple things before we get into what I want you working on, is kind of fill you in on, this is the story arc. And here we have, oops. Okay. Somehow it's not doing right. Right there goes, our next lesson. Everybody with me? Okay. All right. As you guys know, I am into maps. I think seeing maps helps you grasp what we're talking about in here. This is the area around Jerusalem, right here, Jericho. Jesus would have been baptized down in this region right in here. This is the Jordan River. It says he's baptized in the Jordan River outside Jericho right in here. The wilderness he would have gone into is this area right in here. I have a picture that I'll show you. In here, it's up in here and down in here. It could have been any one of these areas out in here. All right. This is the northern part in here. This is Sea of Galilee. Jesus and his found Philip and Andrew, right? It said it was in Bethsaida. Bethsaida was right up in here at the time. It also mentions Capernaum in here. He spent a lot of time in Capernaum right here. Tiberias was the major city on the Sea of Galilee. I have a picture of this. The Sea of Galilee is about 4 miles this way and about 6 miles that way. That video clip I showed you was real good, except that piece right there where he's on with the boats and stuff. That looks like an ocean that has nothing to do. No place in here around the Sea of Galilee does it look like that. Okay. You're standing anywhere on the edge of the Sea of Galilee, you can see across. It's not because both sides have mountains and it's easy to see, so you can tell the distance you're looking at. But it was a good clip. So Jesus up here, picking the disciples up around Sea of Galilee in this area. Around here, there's a lot of fishing. Even today, there's a lot of fishing on the Sea of Galilee. It's a very prosperous. They call it the sea. Geography, just so you know, geography here. It's fed by, there's mountains up in here. It is fed out of the mountains up in this region, up in here, and farther up here, north. Out through the Jordan River, it flows down through the Jordan River and empties into this. This is a natural basin where it naturally fills. Comes down here in the end. It also has a natural outlet. The water will flow in and it flows out. It's got a natural water flow to it, which makes it very fertile, very clear. Even today, you get in there, you can look in there and you can see 20, 30 feet down in the water. Easy. Coming in up here. Find it. Nazareth is right here. Nain is right here, raised the widow of Nain. Canaan is not on this map. Canaan is right about there. Canaan, right here. Right? The wedding of Canaan. Alright, got the kind of map a little bit. Alright, you can see these are hilly regions in here. That's the Jordan River, by the way. So Jesus is baptized in the Jordan River. You not necessarily have a grasp of what it looks like. We've got this great big thing, muddy thing out there. The Jordan River is fairly clear, fairly clean. Reminds me more of the small rivers I saw years ago when I went to Minnesota than it does Mississippi. Right there, no, that's not very wide. It's probably deeper than it looks in here, but it's not very wide in here. It's hard to tell the distance on this picture. I can't quite remember the distance, but it's not as in here, not that wide. Although this was the downtime, the rainy season hadn't come. It's like any other river, natural river. When the rains start coming in, it'll start coming up with the rains, right? But it had watered it all year round. You can see the vegetation in here. This vegetation would grow around this all year round. Even in the dry season, it would grow around. Let's see, you've got the Jordan River. This, by the way, is the wilderness. I'll stand back here. All right. This is the wilderness just north of Jericho. Now that's a modern highway that runs up the top of this mountain, just out of reach in here. The Israeli army has a whole bunch of listening posts sitting up here. You can see all kinds of radar dishes and antennas back up in here. So this is up in here. This is a irrigated kibbutz, a farm basically, right in here. So that's in here. So if you take the road out and you take that out in here, this is what the countryside looks like. It says Jesus, it said in the temptation, went out into the wilderness for 40 days. This is the wilderness he went out into. All right? It is hard for us to grasp in Missouri, even the United States, in here, the lack of vegetation out in this wilderness. This is dirt, folks. There's not weeds, there's not scrub, there's not little bushes in here. This is the next one. You know, you need to think great big sandbox in here. This area where it's in, if you talk about the maps and stuff, this area right here gets approximately a ½ an inch of rain every 10 years. Yeah, some of you went, huh?
Sorry,
Yeah, you didn't hear that. Let me say that again, because everybody does the same thing. This gets about a ½ an inch of rain every 10 years. One of the driest places on earth.
Wow.
All right? Yeah. Hence, there's no vegetation here. All right? This is represented. This is a huge part of this area in here where Jesus, this would have been the wilderness Jesus would have been looking around in. Contrast that with, this is taken up in Galilee. This is the area up in toward Galilee, and it was a rainy day, so I'm up a little bit on a little rise. It was a rainy day, so hence the clouds in here. I apologize for that. But this is up in Galilee. Galilee is farther north. Galilee is where it does get rainfall. This was growing season when we were there. You can see the grass. These are crops right in there. Don't ask me what they are. I've since forgotten them. What they are, but all these fields had crops in them, growing very good. Back in here, this would go on for miles. This region that Jesus grew up in Galilee would have looked like this. This is what, he would have been used to growing up in Galilee. Right? Just a few pictures to give you a contrast. It's a land of vast contrast in the pictures. Galilee is, as I said, looks like this. Judah down in the south looks more like this. All right? With me? All right? So let's do this. All right? Map, pictures, media, story arc. All right, get your sheets out. Maybe you guys are doing some work. All right? Sheets, I gave you the key points. One of the things we find in here is that Jesus is, in the New Testament, we've talked about all these images and stuff in the New Testament, for all these stories. What you find in the New Testament is you find Jesus reliving or Jesus doing these things from the Old Testament again, doing them over again. You have all these references that's going on that Jesus picks up. You saw some of those last week in the nativity story, in the birth. What I want you to do in here is in your groups is this. You see down where it says application follow-up, right? I put 3 sections in here. Jordan River, wilderness and or 40 days in wine. From the 3 main stories in there. Jordan River is Jesus baptized in Jordan River. Wilderness is tempted in the wilderness for 40 days. And wine is from the wedding of Cana. What I'd like you to do is you can use your notes from the first half of our year. You can use your concordance. You can use anything in your Bible. Find the references and stories from the Old Testament that correspond to that. All right? And you don't necessarily have, because we're going to share these, write something in here what you remember. You don't have to write the reference, but kind of, if you pick a story in here, write something in so we can share what it is opposed to the references. Yes?
So like verses?
Like what?
Like verses?
Like verses? Yeah. Okay. All right. You with me? You know what I'm looking for? All right. See how you're doing, because see if anybody catches. I got a freebie here for you. All right. You guys know what we're doing? You good? What you looking for? Yeah, okay, right? Old Testament, yeah, okay.
That's what I said.
Right, that's what we're looking for?
We know what we're looking for.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, Old Testament, right. Right? Right. You can work individually, you can work in pairs, work in groups. In here. All right. There. It's just hard to see the screen when all the lights are off. Mayor's coming. All right? Okay. All right. Mark, okay.
Do we have to do something about this? Do we get something from the Old Testament?
I'm sorry?
Do we get something from the Old Testament?
Yes, Old Testament. Yes,
Does it
ma'am.
have to do with like Jesus?
What's that?
Does it have to do with Jesus?
No, it's just for your wilderness, it was an Old Testament. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, you're looking for Old Testament references, so you're not going to find like wilderness. You're not going to find Jesus in the wilderness in the Old Testament. All right? But you're going to find other references to wilderness from the Old Testament. Some you know. All right? And I'll give you a great big hint here on Jordan River and in wilderness in the 40 days. If you remember what we talked about in the first half of the year, you can find references for those two just to what we talked about the first half of the year. Wine you're going to have to look up in a concordance. But for wilderness and Jordan, you can find what we did the first half of the year, at least one for each of them. Okay. Good, okay. See who takes notes. Reese, grab your notes. Okay? Alright. Catch the CDSAs. You get those, either email those to me or get those, both of them to me on, get today's essay? Okay. Either email it to me or get it to me on Sunday. And be sure to catch the video and stuff. We'll make sure we record it next week.
When you say you The very last one.
So,
Is this Joshua? What was it again?
what guy's name?
Okay, Pastor, where did you say we're looking for the wine?
Wine, you're gonna have to look, in your concordance. What's that?
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead.
Thank you. I drink water really fast.
Like that? There's a great wine reference in the book of Isaiah, by the way. What?
Somewhere in Isaiah.
Right, and I thought I knew right where it was, but I know it's in Isaiah. Yeah, there's a cool reference to wine in it. I'm gonna tell it to you. I can't remember the reference for it, written down someplace else, but I knew it.
I think I have it talking about it in my life.
I mean, you guys have a Bible app? Look up new wine in the book of Isaiah in the Bible app. There's a reference to new wine in Isaiah. New wine. How you guys coming?
I got one.
All right?
I think I found the Isaiah one.
Okay. Let's see.
I don't think any good. Hey, actually use it.
Yeah, that'll work.
Point 'em like that.
That'll get us there. See if the guys can find.
What about 50, Isaiah 55, verse 1?
Yeah, that's what they got.
Yes. Oh, that's all I know.
All right. Yeah. Hey, you guys coming? All right. All right. Ladies doing all right? You got them all?
Well, I got two.
Alright.
Probably a repeat.
All right. Okay, I'm going to give you about 1 more minute. What's that?
Hosea 4, verse 11.
What's it say? Probably not.
55
I have that one.
That'll work.
I have that one.
65? Okay. All right. Yeah.
Hosea 4.
All right. Show his attention. Okay. Yeah. We're not
New
gonna.
wine.
We're not gonna share it.
I know.
Okay. All right.
It's there.
It's going to lead us into being able to talk a little bit about some of these. Took you a second, but I could see everybody was got it hanging. Start in here, digging in. All right. Who wants to start? Jordan River. Ladies in the back here. Right.
Genesis 32:10.
Genesis 32:10 is what? Yeah. All right. Listen up.
I am not worthy of the least of all the deeds of steadfast love and all the faithfulness that you have shown to your servant. For with only my staff I crossed this Jordan, and now I have become two camps.
Okay, that is who? I know the story. Do you guys know the story or just find the reference? That is Jacob, right? Story of Jacob and Esau, Abraham, Isaac, Jacob.
Yeah.
Jacob and Esau, yep. All right. Somebody else have a different another one. Guys, what do you got?
Naaman washed in the Jordan River 7 times.
Yeah. All right, remember that? Story? You know the story? You want me to tell the story?
Where is it, Pastor, though? Where is it found?
It's in
2 Kings 5:10.
2 Kings 5:10, right? Naaman was, at the time, this is the northern kingdom. Remember the southern kingdom, Judah, northern kingdom of Israel. You with me, Abby? Okay, in here. Of the time of the northern kingdom of Israel. Their arch enemy at the time was Assyria. There was a guy by the name of Naaman who was in Assyria, who followed Yahweh, believe it or not. And he had leprosy, which was a dreaded, deadly disease in those days. And he came across, and he went over to and found Elisha, and asked Elisha, can Yahweh heal me? And Elisha said, go away, and on your way home, wash in the Jordan River 7 times. And he goes back, and he washes in the Jordan River 7 times, and he's healed. Okay, God heals him, right? You catch that from baptism? Kind of let it in, right? Baptism does what? Baptism, right, cleanses us and washes away our sins, right? Mr. Jim stuff last year. You see that in the Old Testament. Naaman goes into the Jordan River, and the Jordan River washes away all his leprosy. I'm waiting for it. All right. Okay, another one. Anybody else got anything on the Jordan River? Nothing else on the Jordan River over here, guys. Anything else on the Jordan River over here? Anything on Jordan River they didn't have?
No, I don't have anything. I might have one.
Okay.
I don't know if it's useful or not. It's Joshua 4:7.
Read it.
Then you shall tell them that the waters of the Jordan were cut off before the ark of the covenant of the Lord. When it passed over the Jordan, the waters of the Jordan were cut off. So the stones shall be to the people of Israel a memorial forever.
Right? Got it? No story, right? Now you catch on? Remember when Israelites came, they wandered through the wilderness? 40 years, and they came into the edge of the promised land in here, and we talked the story of Jericho, but what did they do before they went to Jericho?
Jordan?
Yeah, they crossed the Jordan. Right? With me? They crossed the Jordan. Right? Remember when they back in here coming out of Old Testament? They came out of Old Testament, right? Israelites came out of Egypt, right? And when they came out of Egypt, what did they do first? They came out.
Farther at sea.
Right. Through Red Sea. Okay? What'd they do next?
Wandered.
To Sinai.
Sinai. Yeah. Okay. They whined a lot. Yes. 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 And then the next thing they did was somebody said it. Wandered. Thank you. Right? Wandered where?
Desert.
Okay. And then as they came back into the Jordan, the promised land, they crossed what?
The Jordan River.
Okay. Right. Okay, hang on to that because I'm going to go on. All right. Hang on to that one because I'm going to come back to it in a minute. All right. Any other Jordans? That was a biggie, right? Israelites crossing the Jordan River to come back into the promised land at the end of the Exodus. Right? Wilderness, 40 days. I just gave you some. Wilderness, 40 days. Right? Is that what you got?
What?
Which one do you have? Which one do you guys have? Wilderness, yes.
Psalm 78, 19 through 20.
Okay. What's it say?
They spoke against God, saying, "Can God spread a table in the wilderness? He struck the rocks so that water gushed out and streams overflowed. Can he also give bread or provide meat for his people?"
Ooh, that's really good. You know what the Psalm's talking about? Everybody hear it? The Psalm's talking about what Yahweh did for the people in the wilderness. Right? Yahweh did what for the people in the wilderness? Food, which was? Manna from heaven. He also gave them what? From the rock. That's what she's talking about. Very good. Okay? We're going to catch that one up here in, I think, next week. All right? What else? Wilderness, yes?
Isaiah 40, verse 3.
Oh, yeah. That's a nice good Christmas one. What's it say? Read it.
A voice cries, in the wilderness, prepare the way of the Lord, make straight in the desert a highway for our God.
Who's the voice in the wilderness?
Jesus, God.
Who's the voice in the wilderness? I heard somebody over here say it. John. Just saw it, right? John the Baptist, the voice in the wilderness. Okay? Yeah. One of the things we watched this morning today said that. What else? Wilderness. Yeah.
Psalms 1:5-8. Do not harden your hearts as whatever that guy's name is, as on the day of Messiah in the wilderness. And then there's something.
Okay. All right. Yeah. Talking about the same thing. Wandering in the wilderness, right? One of the wilderness in here is, you see what in here. You guys have anything else? Yes.
Now in the ark, it rained for 40 days.
Yeah. All right. There's 40 days, right? Rain for 40 days. Anybody catch the 40 days one? Anybody catch the number 40 besides these guys?
No. 40 years.
What? 40 how long?
Years.
I love when people put things together. Good job. Right? They wandered in the desert for 40 years. Right? There's two parallels here. This is Old Testament stuff, right? Everybody with me? Walk through this from last year, right? There's two parallels here. Going through. First parallel I want you to think about is Jesus. After the killing of the babies, the unborn, right? Jesus goes where? Mary and Joseph take Jesus where?
Egypt.
Egypt, all right? And then after time in Egypt, what do?
They go back to Nazareth.
God brings them out of Egypt. To get out of Egypt, right? They had to go through the wilderness. Okay? But sit here and say he brings him out of Egypt when he's young. And then the first thing you see going in Jesus' life and ministry, you saw it today, Jesus is what? You just saw it. Yeah, Jesus is baptized. He passes through water. What's the next thing that he does? Immediately afterwards, yes. Nope. Nope. It was on the drawing video. I had it in there. What?
Goes to the desert.
Yeah, right? He's tempted in the wilderness. For how long?
40 days.
40 days. What's that? Got it? All right. So there's this parallel here between life of Jesus. Is the Israelites were in Egypt. God brings them out of Egypt through the Red Sea, water, brings them to the wilderness where they meet God for 40 years, and then begins his ministry. There's also a parallel to you guys, right? We start our lives, right, or our lives with Christ. How? When does it start?
Baptism.
Thank you. Last week's sermon. Somebody was listening, right? Baptism. Water, right? But water brings us out of what? Baptism brings us first year stuff. Right? Sin brings us from sin and bondage. Thank you. That was pretty good at this. Right? Right. Baptism stuff, right? Baptism frees us from bondage and to sin. Right? We're in bondage to sin, death, power of the devil. First year confirmation stuff, right out of catechism. Right? We're in bondage to sin like they were in bondage in Egypt. God brings us out through baptism to follow him through this wilderness called life, following him as they followed, right, the cloud. We follow God through this life. And at the end of our life, we enter the promised land because why?
We were baptized.
We're baptized. Got it? Everybody with me? Makes sense?
Yeah.
Right. Old Testament Israel lives out this. Jesus lives out this, and guess who also gets to live this out?
We do.
You do. All right. Anybody got anything else on wilderness and wine? Wilderness in 40 days? Okay, how about wine? This was the one that was a little more tricky for everybody. Okay? All right. Yeah.
I think Ezekiel 20:18 and 19.
Okay, what's it say?
And I said to their children in the wilderness, do not walk in the statutes of your fathers, nor keep their rules, nor defile yourselves with their idols. I am the Lord your God. Walk in my statutes and be careful to obey my rules.
Okay, that's wine or that wilderness?
Wilderness.
Wilderness. Okay, yeah. It's good. Okay, good job. Yeah.
I have one for wine.
Wine. Okay.
Isaiah 55:1.
Which one?
55:1.
Isaiah?
Oh,
All
yeah.
right, everybody got that one?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Come everyone, everybody's seen that one, right? Come everyone who thirsts, come to the waters. Who has no money, come buy and eat. Come buy wine and milk. All right. Anybody else get any wine references? Guys, did you find any?
What about John?
Okay. All right. There's a reference in here, and I apologize to you guys. I can't remember where it was. I thought I had it in my head, but I apparently have lost it someplace. Okay. If they give me enough time, I can find it. All right. One of the things it says in Isaiah. Remember we talked about is the Old Testament. The Old Testament talks about the promise of the Messiah, this one that's coming, all these covenants. We talked about the promise coming. One of the things that Isaiah says is that the Messiah, when he comes, he gives us an image, provides new wine. New wine in abundance. All right? Now fast forward to the wedding of Cana, because it's a cool water and a wine image in here, and God has the power over water and stuff. But there's also this, Jesus is having a huge statement here, is that he's this Messiah in a real subtle way here. If you know the signs that he's talking about. Isaiah sits here and says, right, that Yahweh is going to provide new wine. New wine is an expression for good wine. It's the really good stuff. He sits there. Notice in the story, right? It says when Jesus turns the water into wine, he doesn't turn it into junk. He turns, everybody says it's the really good stuff. Okay? You do the math on these water jars and how much you get. He had 6 water jars, and we'll call them 30 gallons apiece, right? And they filled them up. What, 6 times 30?
180.
It's 180. 180 how many? What's it? Gallons? 180 gallons of water into wine. 180 gallons of wine. That's a lot of wine.
You
All
can
right.
keep that party going for days.
What's that?
Keep that party going for days.
For 40 days.
Probably. Right? He's providing wine. He's providing it in abundance of wine. He's sitting there saying, there's this idea running in here. This is who the Messiah is. The Messiah provides good wine, abundance of good wine. I just provided a whole 180 gallons of the best wine you've ever tasted. Guys, you getting this yet? Right? He's going to slap him upside the head soon. Yes.
I think that verse in Isaiah you might have thought of was Isaiah 25:6. Is that it?
Good job, Tanner. All right. Good job. There's your reference, Isaiah 25:6. All right. He's sitting there. Jesus does this. And I want you to always, going through or look at these lessons, don't you think about these things going through, because we've got sun's coming up. He does the same thing. It's like Lauren said here, right? He sits there, and you've got all this Old Testament stuff. Some of the stuff you know already that we've talked about. Jesus is over here doing the same stuff over here, and he just kind of quietly does it and says, are you catching this yet, guys? This one was the wine. There's more coming. All right. Okay. Other thoughts? Wine. Good job. Good job. Okay. It's about 7:15. Hey, I actually hit my time mark today. That's a switch, isn't it? I hit my time mark.